All right. So we're going to be in the book of Hebrews today.
There it is.
Okay.
That's the reference.
Does anybody know where the book of Hebrews is in the Bible?
It's kind of like right in the middle of the New Testament.
995.
Yep, 1843. That's what page it starts on mine.
In my electronic device.
So the book of Hebrews was primarily written for Hebrews.
Not Jews.
Well, that's official. It was written towards the Hebrews so they could understand the nature of God and why he sent his son Jesus, right? Now, in the middle of it, there is a chapter, and it talks about a great high priest. Now, this month, we are talking about temptation. And we have several things daily that could tempt us. Has anybody ever been tempted to kill somebody?
I mean, they don't drive yet, but when you start driving on the highway,
Road rage.
you kind of want to run somebody else sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
So every day we know we're faced with several temptations that are usually when you use the word temptation, it's used in a bad setting, right? Never a good thing.
Not never.
You're never. I mean, like, are you like tempted to like go give somebody $1,000?
No, not normally. No.
Yeah, I mean, you could be if you had lots of money. Be like, I want to go give that person some money. But we wouldn't really consider that temptation, would we? We would consider that generosity. So temptation generally is something that may not be the best for us, right? So it's wanting to do something that may not be the best for us, okay? So let's say...
You want an example?
I'll throw one out. Let's say you're at a friend's house and you have a temptation to stay up all night, only to realize that you have to go do something tomorrow that you totally forgot about, even though your parents told you you need to make sure you get plenty of sleep. Have you done that before? You're smiling. So you're tempted, like, you can stay up and totally be unaffected all night with sleep, right? You can, like, power through the night. Just to realize you're not, at 9 o'clock that next morning, you have gymnastics. And you're, like, at the gymnastics place, like, boof. Trying to tumble, and you don't. And then you spend your whole Saturday missing out on something that you actually wanted to do. Right? I've never been tempted to stay up all night long. Never. 8:30 is the best I got now. Really. I got a kid. 8:30 is the best I got. I cannot stay.
It's called FOMO, fear of missing out.
Out on sleep.
That'll keep you up all night long.
That's right.
When I leave, the party's going to get good.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
Except I am the party, so the party leaves when. Got him.
Got him.
Yeah. So, and a lot of times, sometimes it's about fear of missing out, but other times it is. So we think if we're tempted by something that we're a bad person, right? Oh, I'm tempted by, I want this cheeseburger like really bad, and I'm going to do something to get that cheeseburger, or I really want this thing at the store, and you've almost been tempted to steal it. Like, I could just slide it in my pocket real easy, like nobody'd ever know. Look, legitimately, people steal stuff every day. Like, if you ever watch, people steal stuff all the time. I've stolen a pencil from Lowe's like 3 times out of my ear unintentionally. And I even walked through the cashier. I stuck a pen as a carpentry pencil, stuck the pencil in my ear because that's just what you do. Walked right out with it. Did it like 3 times that week. Never even realized I did it. Got home like, Whatever. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say peer pressure. Also,
Yeah, peer pressures. Yeah.
tempted.
Yeah.
When
What
your
was?
friends are like, "Oh no, stay up all night long."
Yeah. What was that one
Drink
movie?
soda and chips and.
Well, yeah. What was that one movie with Mandy Moore, where the kid jumps off and then gets paralyzed?
And gets paralyzed, yeah.
Yeah. So he gave in to peer pressure. What was that movie? It's not the one where she has cancer.
No.
It's the other one. No, maybe it was that movie.
No, it wasn't. No, it's not.
I thought that was at the beginning. It's at the beginning of the movie. I just remember that was like classic.
No, it was that movie.
It was, because that's what made it.
A Walk to Remember.
I walked to remember he was pressuring, peer pressuring that guy into doing it, and that was part of his big.
Yeah, he jumped off the water tower.
Yeah, it was like water tower like thing. I can't remember what it was exactly. Anyway, that's like a good example of peer pressure exemplified in a movie. A Walk to Remember. That was a good movie. I'll never forget watching that movie, eating brownies. Like, so sad. It was a good movie. Don't make fun of me. A good life change. So we're always tempted to do something, and it's generally bad for us, right? Stealing, that's bad for you. That degrades your moral character. Okay, so anyway, sometimes the hardest thing about dealing with temptation is what makes us feel, what it makes us feel about ourselves. So we can feel guilt, right? If we feel like we've done something wrong, even though we didn't really do anything wrong, we can feel that guilt and that shame if we feel like, man, I really want to steal this, whatever at the store, pencil. And it can, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? You're feeling a little bit of guilt, but that also should help you lead into repentance for it. Because the truth is, we all sin, right? And we all have to ask for forgiveness. And you see that a good example of that is the King Saul versus King David. King Saul was just as sinful as King David was. They were both equally just as sinful because they're men, and man is sinful. But King David was very quick to ask for forgiveness, as where King Saul did not. So it's really about asking for your forgiveness. And another good example of that is Judas Iscariot that betrayed Jesus versus, not like versus, like, but like versus Peter. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, said, I've never met that man in my life. I don't know who he is. But then when he saw Jesus, he strips down his robe, jumps out of the boat, and goes and asks for forgiveness, as opposed to where Judas just went and hung himself. So it's asking for forgiveness is a good thing. But it can make us feel bad. Peter felt bad, generally, for what he did. He cheated Peter, and I think Judas did too, but he didn't ask for forgiveness. He just took his life because he felt so bad about it. He betrayed Jesus. But so did Peter. See what I'm saying? They both denied Jesus. But one asked for forgiveness, one did not. Same thing on the cross. One asked for forgiveness, one did not. Yeah?
One thing that really stands out in Scripture in one of the Gospels is Jesus looks over at Peter when he denies him the 3rd time and the rooster crows, and it says, and he ran out and wept bitterly.
Yeah.
Like those 2 words, wept bitterly, it's
Yeah.
like weeping is one thing, but like that bitterly really gives you that.
Yeah, like weeping bitterly is like when your dog dies.
Sorrow.
The lip going in and out.
Got the snot drip.
Snot drip, yeah.
Ugly cry. Like really
Yeah. One of your grandparents dies, and you're like, I'm gonna miss them, but your dog dies. You're like, the dog is what gets everybody. My best friend was in the Marine Corps and never cried harder when he had to put his dog down. Like, drug men off of the battlefield, injured and wounded and buried men. But man, I'm telling you, when his dog died, that you stuck him in the wrong place. But yeah, so that's the difference. Asking for forgiveness, not asking for forgiveness. Thief on the cross, ask for forgiveness. Other thief said, if you're so powerful, take yourself down off of that, and actually mocked him, right? So asking for forgiveness is the next step once you sin. If you give in to temptation, you ask for forgiveness. That's a big step, okay? Now we know that Jesus himself dealt with temptation before he ever even started his ministry. Did you know that? That happened before he started his ministry. And that was his, I don't want to say christening, like sprinkling water, but that was his like initiation into being the Son of God. Is like he was tempted. Every human on the face of the planet would have took the bread and broke their fast, but Jesus did not. And above all else, he tried to prove his, the devil tried to prove his kingship by saying, if you're so mighty, jump off this ledge and your legion of angels will catch you. But Jesus did not give in to temptation. Okay? And we ought to strive to do the same. Yes, Bob?
I'm sorry, just so we can relate to the kids as well, right? Jesus was your age.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't like comprehend this. Jesus got colds, and he got flus, and he got like scraped knees, and he got all these things. So like the things that you're dealing with, like going to school and learning Torah and all these things, it's like we talk about Jesus at 30 plus, but like I always think back, it's like Jesus got sick. Jesus was a kid. Jesus went through all these things. So his christening was that 40 days in the wilderness, but prior to that, he's still sinless.
Yeah.
And so he had to be raised as a child through all that. So it's like his whole life. We look at the 3 years, but it's literally 33 years. Those first 30 were his, like, you know, not talked about, but he still was sinless.
Yeah. Yeah, he still was sinless through all that. But the recorded, like, obvious, the recorded obvious is Jesus' temptation in the desert. Yeah, and also you got to remember, like, you guys are 11, 12. Jesus stayed in the temple with the high priests of that day and was learning all of the law.
Yeah.
So you got to remember, the New Testament wasn't written when Jesus was on the earth. He just had the Old Testament and the prophets. That's why he could only, he's not quoting Revelation. He's quoting Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, the major prophets that have already prophesied what's going to happen in Revelation, right? He's just quoting the Old Testament. So he's sitting at 12 years old in the temple, and then his parents leave, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're horrible parents.
We lost him.
We lost the Son of God. We lost the Son of God."
It would be like y'all right now sitting at Firebird's feet. Oh my gosh, listening to him talk about the Bible, and then a week later, your parents are like, "Where's my kid at?"
We left him in church.
Yeah, or even better, like Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting at Billy Graham's, like in his study, and you're talking to Billy Graham, soaking up everything he has to say. Heard a great quote, side note. Billy Graham was asked before he died if there was anything in his life that he would have changed. Like, how do you change what Billy Graham did? And he said, actually, this was his response. Actually, I would have engaged in less speaking and done more prayer and fasting and talking to God and telling him how much I can't wait to meet him.
If you were to do things over again, would you do it differently?
Yes. I would study more. I would pray more, travel less, take less speaking engagements. I took too many of them in too many places around the world. If I had to do over again, I'd spend more time in meditation and prayer and just telling the Lord how much I love him and adore him. And I'm looking forward to the time we're going to spend together for eternity.
Why would you speak less when you had such an enormous audience and people listening? Why would you want to speak less?
I didn't mean that I would speak less in these great stadiums. I meant that I would speak less at all kinds of conferences and things that I was invited to throughout the world, especially in Great Britain and the United States, because I'd get up and travel to those places, and I didn't have time to think and study and pray, and I needed time for that. And if I had to do over again, I would try to organize it much better.
So yeah, there is a point in your life, but I don't think like he's getting punished, right, for going and getting thousands of people to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. But he was just saying, I would not have taken on as many speaking engagements, and I would have engaged in reading the Word and talking to God more. I think that's very interesting because that's essentially what Jesus did. Is he did that all the time, and I think that's part of Billy Graham's life, and that's part of his story. That's just something you learn as you get older. Like he realized, yeah, he was doing all this preaching and teaching and, sharing the gospel, but it's like he had flaws too. And he realized what he should have done. Jesus did it perfectly. After every big major event, he would go into the wilderness, go into a secret place, go into a faraway place, and he would get with God. And not that Billy Graham didn't do that, but I'm sure Billy Graham got caught up in the very swiftness of life, and he only got to read his Bible on the airplane riding to, instead of like taking a month off and just like every day spend it in meditation and, reading the Word and praying. So anyway, we're going to get into the Word. I'm actually going to skip forward one verse to verse 15 because it just, it doesn't make sense if you don't read the verse before it. So this is in Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 14. This one's, I'll just read it because it makes sense. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast to our confession. Right? So remember I was telling you, you sin and then you confess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. And tempted in every way, just like Bob was saying, at 12 years old, to go punch that kid in the face and run away, right? Everybody's wanted to do that at some point in time. Poof, and then run. Jesus never did that. He was too busy. And even Jesus said, like, I'm in my Father's house, 12 years old. I'm in my Father's house. Duh. Moron. Right? What are you thinking, Mary? Joseph, would you get her? Right?
I'm sure that's exactly how it is.
Only Jesus can say woman to his own mother. Woman! I like to think of it as lady. Lady! That's more polite than woman.
For clarity and the recording, woman is a sign of respect.
Yeah.
When Jesus said
Woman.
that to his wife. Or to his
Yeah, and also you got to remember that, because we're in a 21st century culture, the fact that Jesus even recognized women to speak to them was groundbreaking. So how he actually addressed a woman is just stupid to argue about.
Yeah.
Because the fact that Jesus actually attended to women and gave them authority in Scripture it was groundbreaking in that. So it doesn't matter what he says. Be like, hey, come here. The fact that he actually went, hey, come here, was like, oh my God, he just called a woman over here. Even the children. So women and children were not considered as much. So anyway, everybody faces temptation. And of course, they're all not the same, right? My temptation is not yours. My temptation is tools. Tools. There's this tool place that my boss took me to in Virginia. And it is literally like a 2-acre warehouse of tools, top to bottom, everything. It's mad. It's the biggest tool place I've ever been in. And I didn't buy anything. Because I was like, if I buy one thing, I need to buy like 40 other things. But we just stopped in there and he bought some straps for the drums and stuff. And I was just like, oh, I love tools. Tools fix things. Yeah. So anyway, what is a temptation that you have on a daily basis that you know is not good for you?
Candy.
Candy is so bad for you. So bad. It's always related to sugar, right? We're like, candy. I love candy.
Mine's
Anger.
Right?
Right?
Like, isn't there always something that happens during the day and you can get angry about?
That's right. Punch a baby, right?
No! Not the baby part. I mean, a baby would probably calm me down. But, a
Well, now, unless you got a good crying baby that don't, you might punch that baby. You attempted to punch that baby.
Like, if somebody's like, here's my sleeping baby, I'd be like, okay, this is way better.
Yeah, but if they come up and the baby's got poop running out of his leg and he's crying and screaming, they're like, here! You're going to be like, I might punch this baby today. It might happen.
Never thought I'd consider that today.
It was really nice when I watched somebody's dog while I was working from home. I was like, good, I'm stressed out. I can take this dog.
Well, when like a dog's barking and barking and barking and barking, it doesn't shut up. Don't you just want to like scream at the dog?
I'm going to tell you one thing. This is the truth. If I ever have a dog come on my property and he growls at me or even nips at me, especially at Josiah, that sucker's getting buried 6 feet under. He's getting a 12-gauge shotgun to the dome, and that's it. My grandfather taught me that. He had 2 dogs that come up and killed one of his beagles, and he went out there, blam, took his bulldozer, dug a hole, put him in it, never even touched him. So that's the way I'm going to roll. His temptation got a hold of him, right? Boom! Ah! Right? But they were rabid. They weren't like nice little dogs. They were rabid like pit bulls or something. They were not. They killed like a couple of his dogs, so he was justified in doing it. Remember what's true about you, right? What is true about you? You have to remember what's true about you. Invite Jesus into it. These are practical steps. And invite someone else into it. Okay, and as we go into small groups, we will talk about, you can talk about these 3, but the big one that I want to talk about is who is one person you can talk to about temptation. Obviously, the first one being Jesus, right? Because Jesus, and that's the point of this verse, is you're saying like, Jesus is so high and I can't even blah, blah, blah. The verse says it right there. Oh, yeah. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, Son of God, let us hold fast to our confession. Right? In the Old Testament, they would confess to the priest. The priest would then make a sacrifice offering to God at that point, and they would get forgiveness of sins. But we skipped all that. God got rid of it. And now we go directly to Jesus. We're streamlined straight to Jesus. And we do not have to worry about our connection with Jesus because he can empathize with our weaknesses, right? He understands it, except he was sinless.